You won't believe which Necros are currently S tier. And I dare you to guess in the comments below, because the result will absolutely surprise you. Now we're going to look at Endgame, Lilith, Tier 100, Abattoir of Zir. At the end, I'll also show you where in the Paragon board the Tears of Blood truly has the perfect slot for Necro. Now buckle up and let's go, because we've got 8 different builds for you. The list works following. You always have the build, search summoner with a build link and also a build video. And then we're going for 1 to 100 overworld, unique bosses, Nightmare 100, Uber Lilith, and the AOZ prediction. Now, as you can see, the Blood Surge Summoner itself is incredibly good for leveling, but you might kind of want to swap later on because it heavily falls off. And also for the Abattoir of Zir, I don't put high hopes on this because minion survivability is already and the glyph will not help you to boost minion survivability. The same goes for the pure summoner build. It's a lover one for levelers, but for the endgame content, it's truly not something we want to be looking at. But now comes something special with the Necromancer. The Necromancer is using the Black River and the Hell from Below together with the Blood Wave to do overloading damage over time. We're talking about 5 to 10 million damage over time takes, while also having X-Files Corroded Signet explode into your opponent. Main takeaway here was the Desecrated Ground Glyph, which gives us plus 700% damage. Super good. And now this one will scale really nicely also with the Tears of Blood, as you get more damage versus elite / bosses from the Flesh Eater board. Now for leveling, it's not as efficient as the others, but when it comes down to overworld content, unique bosses, and also Nightmare 100s, it does really good. As well as Uber Lilith. The problem with Nightmare 100s was a little bit survivability, but if you play Disobedience and boost the armor up nicely, as you can see in the build link, you'll end up with 15,000 armor roughly. You just don't have a barrier going on like the Lilith builds. Enough armor, not enough barrier, but you completely poop on Lilith. She gets obliterated so fast, it's crazy. And therefore the AOZ prediction is currently a 2, because it might be that without the barrier from Lilith's wall, the defense is not enough, but we don't know how high the damage will be from the Abattoir of Zir, because if the damage is not much higher, then your own damage is already plenty enough and will extremely nice scale with the Tears of Blood glyph. So this might actually go up for a triple stack. Now next up is the Mendel Summoner, and the Mendel Summoner is a bit different to the Pure Summoner and the Blood Surge Summoner, because with the Ring of Mendel you can truly do trillions of critical strike damage that just blast Uber Lilith into pieces. It is a bit squishy though, but it's also playing like Infinimus, so the squishiness doesn't matter because you're infinite blood misting around. So the bonus damage in Abattoir of Zir or the bonus defense you need don't matter at all. And versus Nightmare 100 bosses, it was actually really good and deleted Uber Lilith in a couple of seconds. Check the video. Now for leveling, this is actually really good if you still want to get it up. Overworlding is not so efficient because simply your minions sometimes gallivate around and don't do what you want. You don't have an attack minion button, but unique bosses in Uber Lilith, they just fall left, right, and center. That being said, again, the build is squishier than the Necromancer and some of the others, so I only give it a 1x because you have to play a bit more considerate. You have to play a bit more Infinimus style. Infinimus is strong and you're undying, but once you get out of the Blood Mist and you don't really pay attention and you didn't check your positioning, you might just simply die because you didn't watch out. And that's what the Necromancer and also the consecutive builds are a bit more efficient because they just don't care. They just don't die. So they have like an easy mode playthrough, whereas this one is super good. So technically it's a double X, but because you have to watch out so much for your own life, I only give it a 1x because it's just going to make it more clunky to play. Now it's time to ramp up. We're talking Lidless lands, which means Bloodlands with Lidless Wall together being undying, producing copious amounts of essence. But if you're not spawning your corpses versus a boss, you might struggle a little bit with the Blood Orb production there. All in all, it is a killer build to push dungeons because you're undying, and the more enemies there, the more enemies are stacking up. Bloodlands keeps piercing them, and then there's more damage to pierced opponents and consecutive more damage, and everything blows up. Now, Overpower is also in a nice position to kind of scale with the Tears of Blood glyph. because of the Tears of Bloodglyph gives you more damage, and that gets multiplied by Overpower. We can't complain about that, right? For leveling, it's horrible though, and overworlding is just simply nice to get your hell tides done, for example, but unique bosses get torn into pieces, especially if you have the Blood Wave with you. So this build has two modi, has the modi with and without Blood Wave, and then you're suddenly getting the triple X plus, because if you swap in the Blood Wave, you get more Blood Orbs and you'll delete bosses even easier. Lilith has never died easier than with the Bloodlands build, because you hold down your 2 button and she just dies. And we're talking already about 10 million overpower crits without Grandfather or anything. Nightmare 100s go extremely easy, and therefore the AOZ prediction is still only a double X because of the essence issue sometimes against bosses that can be elevated a little bit with a triple Blood Wave if you carry a focus with you to replace the Lidless Wall. Now I'm only giving it a double X because the true triple X builds are about to follow now. And that is Bone Spear Evolved. Yes, why Evolved? Because we're talking about a Bone Spear that has up to 20,000 life and 17,000 armor, while still doing millions of crits and deleting bosses left, right, and center. And this one is just so efficient, it's crazy, that the Bloodlands build feels clunky in comparison, because that's the tankiness of the Bloodlands build. It never runs out of essence, and it deletes and it kills bosses so fast that you can't even run into essence issues. And the best part, if you're leveling it, it's incredible. Open worlding, super fantastic. Unique bosses, it gets a plus because it's so good at it. Nightmare 100s, they just fall. You're running through them, you can't take a single damage point. You have 19,000 life, 19,000 barrier, 17,000 armor, and doing millions of crit damage. Yes, you can play the Grandfather, even I just dropped it yesterday, for bossing to make bossing even more efficient, but only for bossing. That's why it's getting the AOZ triple X prediction. This is definitely a build I will want to have there. And yes, since it's doing millions of crits already, getting even more damage with the Tears of Bloodglyph multiplicatively scaling will only scale your crits even higher. This gets followed up by the Giga Necromancer, and I see a lot of people have been confused why we're going for crit on a Necro. The thing is, this is a Necro that's using Ixfeld's Corroded Signet. Ixfeld's Corroded Signet gives damage procs that can critical strike and has a 40,000 base damage. And now going for crits, that can go for 10, 20, 30, 40, and the highest I've seen, 65 million. In total, you see on your screen up to 150 or 200 million damage. The more HP your opponents have, the more damage you can deal. This is the very interesting part about this build, because if they have more HP, your damage can ramp up even higher and then completely escalate into craziness. Add to that the Tears of Blood, as we already do 50 million crits, seems very good. 1 to 100, not so efficient with the build, and overworld content also. But unique bosses, Nightmare 100s, Uber Lilith, and the AOZ fall absolutely. That being said, it is less fast than Bone Spear, but not less efficient. Because let's say Bone Spear takes 20 seconds to kill a boss, Giga will take 40 seconds. So you're slightly behind the Bone Spear merely when it comes down to killing speed. But truly, when it comes down to going through the dungeon and killing everything, going through Nightmare 100s and dealing with hordes of mobs with high HP, especially when one of the Abattoir of Zir is going to be slay all enemies, you're there and you're going to be unstoppable. Now the final build and the craziest creation we have made this season, and that's going to be the Blood Surge Undying Emperor. But this time it's the Infinite Blood Surge version. And it's so crazy. We're talking here 20,000 life, 15,000, 16,000 armor with disobedience going on, 20,000 barrier on top, overpowers in the millions. And here the interesting part, we're doing overpowers plus crits, and then we're adding another damage multiplier with the Tears of Bloodglyph. That should be working out super S tier easy. This is also the best leveling build Necro ever had, and we actually included the leveling build here. That's why it's getting a plus a video where we actually leveled so you can see this. The overall content is easy because you just press a button and everything dies around you in a 360-degree cone. Unique bosses get destroyed. The same for Uber Lilith. You would say, what? Uber Lilith? Yes. Blood Surge is so good against single target too once you fix the essence issue with the build we're going for. Nightmare dungeons are as easy as they are with Bone Spear, and it's definitely tied with Bone Spear when it comes down to clearing. Again, if Bone Spear does 20 seconds clear, this does a 30-second clear. And I think these three builds with the Giga Dot, the Blood Surge, and also the Bone Spear are the triple stack that you want to have for the Abattoir of Zir. Because here we're already talking about S tier is Bone Spear and Blood Surge. And the A tier is Giga Dot. I would kind of like to put Giga Dot up here with these two, but it's just a wee bit less efficient. It's really good and it's safer to play than these two because you kind of have the chance to always go into the Blood Mist and then reduce the Blood Mist cooldown faster, where these might be a bit riskier, but they're not risky in any degree because they're absolutely undying. The Bloodlines and Poopmancer are amazing, but the Bloodlines has a little bit of essence issues and the Poopmancer has a little bit of defense issues, which might get fixed with the Tears of Blood glyph, so let's not paint the devil on the wall. Mendon Summoner is C tier because it just dies a little bit too easy. And the Pierce Summoner and the Surge Summoner D tier, I would not recommend playing them for the Abattoir of Zir. Now, where would the Tears of Blood, though, go? Now, again, Tears of Blood is boosting rare nodes. So let's go a little bit with Exclusion. If we put it in here, then these two rare nodes would be boosted. That would be a flat damage increase and also a flat armor increase. Not bad. More defense, more damage. It's additive damage though. Now in the Bone Graft board, we could be getting more resistance to all elements. That's good. And on the other hand, we could get bone skill damage bonus. That wouldn't hurt as well, so here is not a bad position to put it in. But for example, in the Send of Death board, you really don't want to go because we would increase the damage to injured enemies. Our defense, but only the damage to injured, so they would have to lose 65% of their life until this one would truly grip. And the same kind of goes to the Bloodbath board because here we have damage while fortified, conditional, and also healing received. I don't want to kind of boost these nodes. And looking at the Blood Begets board with damage for 4 seconds after picking up blood orbs and orb peeling, nah. And for the Wither, we have the same issue because there is shadow resistance and shadow damage. Shadow damage being nice, but shadow resistance is... It's hard to find a board that has two good nodes. Then we're going into the Flesh Eater board that actually 90% of all the Necros have we have played there. And here we're talking about bonus resistance to all elements and also damage to elites / bosses. That's quite nice. The damage to bosses is a good multiplier. The resistance is fantastic. I mean, this would be, again, bonus damage and it wouldn't hurt. But that's only a flat 20%, where this is already 32%. And you don't only care about damage versus normal enemies, they'll die anyways. So if this one gets boosted, it's already baseline more efficient. Now the question rather is, what do you need? Armor, or do you need resistance? I think resistance might actually be more important, especially if you can boost the resistance here on Erudite. You can finally go away from the sacrifice skeletal warriors for elemental resistance and potentially pick up even more critical strike chance. When I'm already playing a triple stack of skulls instead of diamonds because my resistances are nicely capped out. I now managed to get my resistance even higher. Well, that wouldn't hurt, would it? Link for the tier list is in the description below, so you have everything gathered. Planning to also put this on a website as soon as I get the website rolling. Which build is it going to be for the AOZ for you? My favorite right now, Blood Surge or Bone Spear. Check them out.